on the Beyond Bitcoin network. Today is Saturday, October 6th, 2018. I am Official Fuzzy, and I will be joining you guys as I do every week, or every other week now, with my trusty sidekick companions on the crypto adventure of a lifetime that we call Beyond Bitcoin. And they all join up at various times. Some of them join up every time that we have a hangout. Some of them are here to stream all of them. People like Power Picks. We have people who are doing cool initiatives that are using the different tools that we have in our ecosystem. And we're going forward into something that I like to say is beyond Bitcoin. And I believe that our community has largely leveraged whale shares, BitShares, delegated proof of stake chains like Smoke, and now EOS is going to be something that is going to be in our repertoire. Things like Telos, Warbly that come from EOS. And here we are every other week now on Saturday nights to discuss what's going on in EOS and some various things that I think are important. And we also try to get guest speakers on, but we also have a community who wants to discuss things that they think are important in the ecosystem. So we leave this as an open kind of hangout that anybody can join. You can always go to our RSVP posts on whaleshares.io at officialfuzzy, or you can go to EOSTalk.io at officialfuzzy. And you can always see our RSVP threads if you would like to join and actually have an official RSVP to these hangouts. Now, with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining up this week. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into, if we can really quickly, we always like to go into the forums. So if I can get to the forums here. As you can see, these forums are based on delegated proof of stake. We have the EOSTalk Forums here. They are working off of a blockchain. Nowhere else in cryptocurrency other than in EOS do you see. So delegated proof of stake, this is what we've been showing people before EOS was even born. And we are planning on having it actually, it currently has its own test net. So we are going to actually have a blockchain that we want to create connection and maybe even make a decentralized block producer. But if you really don't care about any of that stuff, we do have the Discord server. You can click right there. You can join us for these. You can join during the weekly discussions that people have in here in our Discord server, become part of our community. Or if you're just here to check on the price and you don't always want to go to CoinMarketCap, you can do it right here. You can see directly on the forums. And of course, if you sign in, you can potentially earn tokens from posting on these forums. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to what we always like to move on to, which is the most important thing. And I'll always say it's the most important, which is blocktivity.info. And then I'm going to start with a real quick presentation tonight. Yeah, I wanted to update some people as far as what's going on a little bit with the bandwidth markets and why they're important. Because the bandwidth markets for Chinte just opened up. And I want people to understand one of the big reasons why Bitcoin is very strong and why EOS is capable of taking some of that thunder and creating its own ecosystem that's vibrant and has it as its centerpiece as well. So if you go here and you look at blocktivity.info, these are the most scalable chains in the world. As you can see in the top three, they are on their CUI, which is capacity utilization index, meaning just a fancy term for how much of the network resources are being used. You can see if you scroll over them during when you're on the blocktivity.info website, you can see exactly how much of the network is being used to process these many transactions. So as you can see, BitShares right now is number one. It is the chain in the world. It was another project by Dan and the community that I grew up in, and that I still to this day try to help. They are number one right now, and it's very little amount of their network being used. EOS, which is about what, 6 to 8 months old, somewhere around there, a little bit behind, but it is obviously much of its network either. And then you have Steam. And then if you go into Ethereum, if you can go back to Ethereum, because Ethereum's really, I think, the best use case to show. You'll hear a lot of people talking about how Ethereum is necessary in the ecosystem. I think it's being politically correct when they say that, to be fair. If you look at their capacity utilization index, they have that big exclamation point there. And that's kind of just telling you, hey guys, all of this network capacity is used. So basically imagine having a computer and you're trying to run something on it, but that computer is slow. That's kind of what ETH is right now, is that it's a computer that is really slow. Steam, EOS, BitShares, in the top three, they are computers that are very fast. And because of that, you can do many things on them at once. And as you can see, that is why these are the top chains in the world. Now, with that said, we won't go into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is obviously kind of like the cryptocurrency gold. I don't know that anybody will ever tell you not to invest or buy into a little bit of Bitcoin. I will never tell you directly to do so, but I will say that Bitcoin, I have a hard time believing is going anywhere. But with that said, Bitcoin is one of very few, and it is the beginning. It's the first one. So not saying that it can't happen, but it even if it does survive all these other chains that are coming, like BitShares, EOS, and Steam, and all these different DACs that are going to be highly scalable, it's still going to kind of be that crypto that you hold on to and you don't really do much with until you trade into one of them. Okay, so with that said, does anybody have anything? I guess I should probably go before I ask anybody else. PowerPix, do you have anything that you'd like to update anybody on this week? As far as any of your initiatives, the whale shares community, any of that stuff?
Yeah, the only thing is over on the WellShares community, which most of us who are over there, we had a hangout every Tuesday, and this last announcement was that the power down feature had been activated, and that was on October 1st. So by the 8th, which is about, it's UTC time, so about 24 hours or so from now, the first liquid WLS will hit the market, and that'll be through the Rudex gateway over to BitShares. So we're looking forward to that. That's the first time that the WLS token will actually have a value established for it. That's really our updates. As far as that side goes, we're just focusing on that this week. We're onboarding new members on that platform, and then at the same time, supporting Telos and Warbly. We're still doing the Hangouts weekly for Telos with Douglas, and those have been growing each week, our attendance and participation. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, and we call this the exponential operating system for a reason, right? Because there are many flavors of Linux, right? And that happened because it was open source. The community could come around and build it. But now, what do we have? We have something slightly different, right? We have these distributed databases that we can create that enable us to have our own economic layer, and rules that we can put in place as a community based on consensus, and then we can live in those ecosystems, and we can have many of them. So we talk about the exponential operating system, and that's why I think it's important that Telos and Warbly exist, and that's why I'm glad that you guys are doing that stuff. So thank you with that. And I'll also let you guys all know that I'm planning on trying to get some of the block producer meetings from Warbly streamed to our archives as well. So with that said, we do have all that stuff coming, and thank you everybody who makes this stuff possible, everybody out there who's telling everybody about what we're doing, or if you're just one of the people who's loyally joining up every week or listening after the fact. If you pay attention to this stuff, you will see that we've been pretty on point with a lot of things. So with that said, let's go ahead and real quick, let's go into the price. If we can go into CoinMarketCap, because we have not talked about price for quite some time. Let's go ahead and bring up that chart real quick. We don't really love to talk about price, but I think it's important that people we do have to keep an eye on it, right? We have to understand what's going on in the ecosystem with this stuff, and we have to kind of at least understand. You don't have to be a technical analyst of a chart or like a chart reader, but it's important to know where things stand and to have a guesstimate of where things are going. And as you could tell, we said a while back, I said probably that we probably wouldn't see it go too much below $5 if it went below. And as you can tell, it did go below $5, but very briefly. And right there seemed to be the bottom, meaning it hasn't touched that bottom again. Which means that really, when you look at the price, it seems like it might be at a low during an accumulation phase, which means people are slowly buying in and see that price start creeping up again. Now, you never know what's going to happen in the market, but what you do want to know is if it goes below, I think it was like 460, 465, somewhere around there in here at that bottom. If it goes below that, it's created a new bottom. So then we have to look at the next support level, which is way back in the beginning of EOS. And it's probably closer to about 250. So if that happens, that's the bearish scenario. But it looks like right now there's a decent floor that's building up. We'll see what happens. I've seen some technical analysts that seem to make sense to me saying it's going to go up. But, you know, this is a game that's very, we have to be very careful to tell you what is going to happen. I know what I do. I buy, I hodl, and I try to bring value in the ways that I can. And try to connect people who are bringing value to the space so we can guarantee values here, right? Then we'll let the numbers come out as we get better and better at that. Now, I'll answer some of those questions here afterwards, guys. Okay, so real quick, does anybody have anything that they'd like to bring up before I get into this presentation that I wanted to bring up tonight? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and go into the presentation. And I don't want to make it too long, but I think it's important that we discuss why Bitcoin is king, and how EOS and share drops in the bandwidth markets are going to help to change some of these things. It's just a basic presentation. I don't want to go too crazy in depth on things, but I do want to cover some basic concepts from the perspective of somebody who's maybe a little bit new to cryptocurrency, who hasn't been here literally since. And I just remember reading about all these altcoins and stuff, right, that were really like just clones of Bitcoin, quite literally, in the very beginning days. So there's a lot that I think we can kind of boil down for the newbie that are essential things that they should know. And this is going to then connect into an essential thing I think people should recognize about EOS and why EOS is in a great position. So let's go ahead and move on to slide number 2. This is EOS share drops and bandwidth markets. So the first slide that I have here is, why is Bitcoin king? And it's important to recognize that Bitcoin was the first coin. A lot of people would badmouth the second and third and fourth and fifth coin that came out. But a lot of people don't realize that those coins that came out and, just kind of mirrored Bitcoin and changed a couple variables, like, oh, we're going to change the maximum supply. We're going to change the name. We might even give it a gimmicky name like Sex Coin or something like that, right? It doesn't do anything, but we're just going to do these things. And there were people who were frustrated about this stuff in the ecosystem. But I would argue, and what I'm going to argue a little bit tonight, for the point of why Bitcoin is such a big behemoth. It is the dominant crypto. And I think that it's largely because of all of those coins that the maximalists would have called shit coins. Sorry if your PG-13 might have been broken there. But it's an important moniker that you're going to hear around crypto anyway. But they would call these coins like coins that would have no value. But I believe that they've become wonderful funnels for Bitcoin and have created a lot of power for Bitcoin. So let's go to the next slide here. And I'm going to give this from an analogy of of space, right? I don't want to get too in depth, but let's keep it simple. If a blockchain was a universe, right? A universe that holds galaxies, and those galaxies hold solar systems. Go to the next slide. And if cryptocurrency was a galaxy in the blockchain universe, just one galaxy, one of many, right? You would look in, and of course this says Milky Way, but you would if you put in this little space here that it's pointing to a Bitcoin, that's kind of where you are in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So Bitcoin then is kind of a solar system within that galaxy, right? And if you look around that solar system, you look at the sun has all these different planets that have mass that surround it and orbit it because of its mass. And some of those planets have some level of life potentially existing on them because of the sunlight and the energy that it lays off, right? So if we look at Bitcoin as the center of a solar system, it would be the sun. It was the first one, right? There was nothing else that came before it in terms of these coins. Everything that came out had kind of swirled around it. Every new one that came out, it kind of brought more gravity to the entire galaxy, right? And I'm not saying that we're quite to the point where that galaxy has all these different solar systems yet, but we're starting to get there. So if Bitcoin is the center of a solar system, and most of the cryptocurrencies are traded directly against it, I don't know of a single one that isn't. There probably is one or two. Well, I guess there are some on BitShares that are not directly, but could directly be traded. But everything trades against Bitcoin, and that's why it has this dominance, right? So if you look at the altcoins, go ahead to the altcoins orbiting BTC. If you look at these altcoins as orbiting the sun and the BitShares and the Bitcoin ecosystem, all of them are proof of work, and they're kind of out there just orbiting the ecosystem, and not many of them really have any life because they're just kind of slowly going around. There's not a whole lot they can do, right? As we look at blocktivity.info, we can always go back there and look at it to see the activity that they have. And you guys don't have to do that, of course. But the point is, that's essentially what these are. And by default, EOS has to be spinning around the sun. BitShares has to be spinning around that sun because they are so directly connected to it. And because that ecosystem is so dominant, and because it has created between itself and all these altcoins a way for people to profit via speculation and to lose via speculation and to create wealth, perceived creation of wealth, right? And we're at this point in time where now we can actually create wealth. We have EOS, we have BitShares, we have Steam, we have Whale Shares and Smoke Network, and all these other cool things that are coming like Warbly and Telos. We have all these ecosystems that can bring real value. They can actually scale. They have resources that they can give out to people to leverage for their own dApps. They have their own scalable use cases, their own economies, their own vibrant life that kind of, they're getting this value from the sun, right? They're soaking up this value as they are spinning around that sun, and they're going to create more and more gravity over time. So the network effect is similar to gravity, and if Bitcoin is at the center, nothing currently outweighs it, but if they can get enough mass from the center, and if they can get enough mass from other places in the solar system and create enough gravitational pull to create its own ecosystem from all this value, and perhaps EOS can become something kind of like Bitcoin, or BitShares can become something kind of like Bitcoin, right? These chains that can connect with every other token can become like Bitcoin, and they can have gravity. So Bitcoin has this effect, and it's called Bitcoin dominance. If you guys can go to the next slide. And here, this chart is really a good way of just kind of visualizing how much bigger the Bitcoin market is than the rest of the altcoins, right? You can put all those altcoins charts on top of each other and stack them up instead of stack them on top of each other the way they are, kind of stack them 2D on top of each other on this paper here. They still don't take up the entire market, take the majority of the market capitalization dominance, meaning most of the value, most of the mass in this solar system is still Bitcoin. And this dominance is largely due to everyone trading for Bitcoin, right? But there's also is going to be Bitcoin going up or down is going to help to dictate whether the altcoins go up or down. Now, I'm not saying it always happens, And as the big boys come in, probably will have happen less because they'll try to make money off of this stuff, off of people seeing patterns and then trying to disrupt those patterns. But Bitcoin going up, altcoins will generally go up. Bitcoin goes down, generally altcoins go down. And that's because they have to go out. They have to sell their altcoins to get into Bitcoin, then to Bitcoin, and to fiat if they believe all the things are going to go down. So you'll see that the altcoins actually go down more than Bitcoin at times. Now, because of this, because of all these coins trading against Bitcoin, because every time people go into a trading interface or to CoinMarketCap, any of these places, Bitcoin is the guaranteed dominant player. And because of this, because of the trading against all these coins, and because of all this, the Bitcoin dominance, everybody thinks of things within the crypto ecosystem in terms of Satoshi value. How many Satoshi is this altcoin, right? And because of that, that's another reason why BTC has so much mass, why it is dominant. Which brings me to the value of share drops, right? You would get a lot of different forks of Bitcoin during the early days. Some of them would give tokens for free to people who hold Bitcoin. Some of them would just launch new chains, right? But what happened was the people who had the mining equipment as a target demographic, they kind of got the opportunity to be share dropped to new chains as long as they were willing to mine them, right? And because of that, these different coins all kind of traded against Bitcoin. And this target demographic became very powerful. They have a lot of money. Obviously, if you're a miner, you have a lot of money, right? And of course, you have an incentive to say all the things and all the FUD about what we always hear from Bitcoin-centric media and mining-centric media, which is that nothing scales yet, and they are just coming up with cool solutions that will probably work someday, right? And they ignore the fact that we already have technology that we talk about every week here that is far above and beyond what a lot of these different cryptocurrencies claim to be able to do someday. So to the share drops, these targets, the target demographic was very wealthy, was capable of running this equipment and mining these tokens. So they became powerful, but they also became share drop recipients, if you really think about it. And what that did was it created an incentive for all of them to pair it up against Bitcoin. Oh, I'm going to make hobo nickels. Hobo nickels was an actual thing. Okay. I'm going to create hobo nickels. Hobo nickels will trade against Bitcoin because I'm trying to get a bunch of Bitcoin, right? And it's kind of stunning to me because you would have a person who's mined a bunch of hobo nickels and traded it for Bitcoin, and then the Bitcoin people hated it that they were doing this. And they would put it down and they'd say hobo nickels are worth crap. They're a shit coin. They're a shit coin. And what was this? What did it do? It created this connection to Bitcoin, just another funnel. Maybe maybe people didn't have enough equipment or the ASICs or any of that stuff to mine Bitcoin, but they could mine another coin and get in as a funnel. And then they could promote their community, right? And that's essentially what Bitcoin did have share drops in a sense then, right? And somebody mentioned air grabs. It's kind of like that. You actually do a little bit of work to get them, right? But the value of those share drops is that it makes those connections. It creates more gravity. And now that we're looking here at the share drop dApps for EOS, and I want to say that a lot of these, I want to make it clear, a lot of these are trading pairs against EOS, right? And since EOS can actually handle the number of transactions required from dApps like this to trade, there will be more liquidity in trading amongst these dApps. And you can kind of see these dApps as a miniature version of what happened in the early days with Bitcoin and the shitcoins, as they like to call them. So this brings me to the value of bandwidth on EOS. And I want to make it kind of clear because there's some distinctions here that I think are important to bring out. Because Bitcoin does not offer really anything, right? They have Sexcoin, but what is Sexcoin going to do? It doesn't really work. It's so slow. You require a miner. You require a bunch of miners. And then if they get overloaded, then you have to wait in a queue, or you have to use the Lightning Network, where you do have to trust people. And there's a lot of questions, right? Bitcoin doesn't have all those answers quite yet. They say they do, but I never see it, which really makes it hard. And then what I do see in the news is that they never talk about the things that we're doing and this type of stuff, and that it's actually there already. But let's go to the value of bandwidth in the EOS ecosystem. If you look at platforms like Rex and Chinte, and this is the main reason I wanted to talk about this tonight, is that platforms like the Rex and Chinte are bandwidth platforms for EOS. There's 3 different types of bandwidth. There's RAM, there's CPU, there's net. We won't get into the details of it, other than to say that staking your EOS gives you CPU and net, the bandwidth that you can then lease out. And what that means is that you've got locking away EOS means fewer EOS on the market, right? And then the users begin trading against EOS and thinking more about EOS as a primary token. And in the case of something like Chinte, you're going to get share drops that create more trading in pairs to kickstart volume on this platform. And I should have put one other one, but I couldn't fit it on there. So I wanted to remember it. But the other one is that these platforms are going to introduce the ability for you to get the share drop. And, well, I think that Rex will. Chinte, I know, will, because I advised them to do so and they liked the idea. So they're going to do it. They're going to accept and give you guys share drops for your staking tokens. But they're going to open up the ability for people to start trying out new dApps, and for the dApps to be able to effectively get the bandwidth they need to operate, to get started cheap, right? If you believe you have a dApp that will be successful, it's a lot cheaper to rent the EOS and try it out and see if if it's going to get popular before you buy it. And that's what this is going to enable. So when you have most of the tokens locked away, you're not trading them for BTC. These tokens are not, these EOS will never be really traded for BTC, or at least will be traded far less often for BTC. And additionally, they're going to be traded against one another and against EOS, because that's what they share dropped on, similar to Bitcoin, but with one key difference. Well, two key differences. One, that if I lock away my EOS, I can earn something as an everyday individual, unlike what you can do with mining, really. And two, I'll actually have use cases that make that bandwidth that I stake actually worth something, because they can survive in the free market. They can exist. So the reason I wanted to talk about this tonight is because I see these depots ecosystems, and I see them all as their own stars, their own solar systems. Some of them will be larger stars than others, but they're all going to have their own objects floating around them, right? Their own mass. And I think what you're seeing is a galaxy forming, right? And I don't even know where we go outside of the galaxy, because the galaxy is a pretty huge deal. Yeah, well, no, you can go back to that. Don't go up there. And what's happening is these new galaxies, these depots chains, you're essentially going to have hubs between them. And more, you're going to have people wanting to travel to different galaxies, or to different solar systems within that galaxy. You're going to have wormholes that take you between them, which will enable cross-chain and interblockchain communication kind of stuff. You're going to have some planets that sometimes exchange around stars, and they want to live on one star and then move to another star. You're already seeing that with ETH, and people moving from ETH over to EOS. That's where we are. And a lot of people have been talking about the problems with Chinte, and how somebody lost a lot of money on there because they didn't understand the market orders and how they work. This is crypto. People need to be very careful. You all need to be very careful. You need to test things before you go full in on it, right? And these things are new. Or you just sit back and wait until all the kinks have been worked out. But you have to be very careful. But I wanted to make this clear tonight, because with stuff like Chinte, you're going to have a lot of the valuable things that I think are extremely important that we leverage in EOS. They're going to bring all these different value propositions, and there's going to be a lot of FUD around somebody losing probably $30,000. And they lost it because of their own fault, because of not understanding the user interface and not testing it out and stuff. But at the same time, these things will get better. And it's important to recognize that as this stuff does start picking up, what do you think is going to happen when people want to stake more EOS? When fewer and fewer EOS are available on the market, and dApp developers want to start leasing it out and actually share dropping on people who help out and participate in their ecosystems, or maybe even give them a little bit of bandwidth to create accounts, things like this, right? What happens when EOS or BitShares or any of these different delegated proof of stake chains become stars of their own and form their own little galaxy? Because that's where we're going. Not just a solar system, but a galaxy. It's kind of cool to see, I guess, in the imagery you see on our little EOSTalk thing, that kind of gives a visualization of what we see. But with that said, I will shut up, and I'll tell everybody thank you very much. I'll tell BitShares thank you, Warbly, Whale Shares, Smoke, Project Milkbox people, Telos, I need to put you guys on there. I will have you guys on there for the different slides that I do in the future. But thank you for everybody who's out there doing this stuff, because you're leveraging technology that if you were to listen to mainstream media, crypto media, you would believe that it doesn't exist and that we have to have aliens drop it on us. But we have it today. And that's where we're going. And the people who recognize it early are generally the ones who have to be patient, but that patience generally pays off. With that said, I'm going to shut up for real now and open up the floor to anybody who has anything they'd like to bring up. Do we have any questions from anybody who was listening live?
I have a question, and I guess I'm going to have to go back. There was a question and that I never got answered. Someone asks, "Is EOS going to be better than the?"
You know what? I'm not an expert on the low level stuff as far as the framework that EOS is using compared to BitShares. But what I have talked to some people who are pretty not stupid on the matter. Let's say that. And I've been kind of surprised to hear people bring up that because BitShares is more of a specific use case, that it could be a lot higher performance for things like being a DEX than, say, EOS would, because EOS has to be a general purpose platform. Meaning, imagine it's almost kind of like ASICs. It's not nearly like ASICs because I hate to use that comparison, but if you look at ASICs, ASICs are very good at doing a couple things, or generally very good at doing one thing. But it's kind of like that. You get a computer you get a service that is just doing a couple things, right? A certain or a broad spectrum of things based on one kind of thing, like financial services, passing tokens back and forth and trading them. This could be something that can be more efficient at doing just that. So maybe BitShares ends up becoming more efficient at just that task and outsources other tasks to EOS or other chains. That's how I see it. We'll see. You still there?
Sorry. So yeah, I'm trying to read it. Give me. Their question is EOS dependent on how well Block One deploys their VC?
I've discussed the VC funds quite a bit. I think the hackathons are great that they're doing. I think that if they were to fund share dropping on EOS for various projects, like milestone projects, then it would probably get a lot of buzz and hype for EOS and would make people want to lock it up. You know, you could even do things like you don't get share drops on this stuff unless you're voting, right? You could have stuff like that. But I think that VCs and them building dApps on EOS is definitely going to be important. Definitely going to be important. How can it not be? Right?
I have another. Have you seen a lot of migrate from Ethereum to EOS? Do you see that?
Yeah, there are people who reach out to me. There's one who's actually looking for funding too, but I've had multiple ones that I've had reach out to me, or that somebody has reached out to them and told them to reach out to me. And it's been because they're moving over to Ethereum. I mean, from Ethereum to EOS. Now, most of them are also in positions where, they don't want to probably bite the hand that largely feeds them. Because let's face it, Ethereum does have a lot of money, even though they don't have a network that really works. But yeah, a lot of them are very interested in working with EOS and Ethereum at the same time, of course, if possible.
I have a left field. Hold on, let me. Okay, there it is. Okay, my question is: do you think the release of EOS better without Brock Pierce in the picture, or do you think it affects?
Can I plead the fifth? I'll say this. There's a lot of people who are curious about what Brock Pierce's life is about, what goes on in that guy's life. So I don't know for sure. I do know that some of the things that I've heard kind of make me feel like it's a bad thing for EOS, but then at the same time, Brock has a lot of EOS tokens, and he's one of the people who's working with the Tether people. Let's just say this. I think that EOS, personally, I think EOS is going to do well. Either way. But as far as Brock Pierce, I don't know the guy, but I do know that some of the stuff kind of concerns me about it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there isn't anything to be concerned about. And I hope that's the case. I will always hope that's the case. But I will also say, hey, you've got many flavors of Linux, right? And there's nothing that we can do that's going to really directly harm EOS by creating a bunch of chains that are going to synergize with it and creating Voltron. So that's what I would prefer to spend my time looking at. But there's definitely characters out there in crypto that you don't know for sure about, right? And that's because crypto is getting serious. People are realizing this is the future. So you're going to have some interesting players come into the game. You already have people like Jamie Dimon and them saying, they at first they hate crypto, then they like crypto, and they're already into it. Whether they're pumping and dumping it or not, they're into it. So that tells you something, right? But there's going to be sharks and there's going to be some benevolent people, but you got to learn to be at least a puffer fish in these waters, guys and gals. Let's say that. And I'll shut up now instead of rambling too much about it. Anything else? Sure.
I read that Dan Larimer signed a multi-year with Block One. I think it was like a 10-year thing. Does that increase your confidence in the?
Oh man, Dan is really good at what he does, and I'm pretty sure everything that at least everything up to this point that he's done that I know about has been open source. So with that said, I really love everything that Dan has done. I really respect all of the projects that he's worked on. And I've seen and consistently use these state-of-the-art blockchains. So they exist without Dan. They exist on their own. They're doing quite well. Compared to EOS, I mean, it's a new project and Dan's new project. I think that Dan's a good person to have on the team, but I'll also say I don't think that his absence will kill it if for some reason he ever steps down or if something did happen. Just because, we've seen it before. right? But these, yeah, go ahead.
Can I chime in on that? This is Greg from Edna. I'm facing kind of on a much smaller scale, the sort of same thing that, not necessarily do you find the ability to create and the ability to manage and grow in the same individual. And not only that, even if an individual can be a manager growth person, it doesn't mean he really likes it. He might really just like to create. I think we lose sight of that when we look at Dan. A lot of people say, oh my God, if we lose Dan. Not really. I think that's what you were saying too, Fuzzy, but I'm just coming from a place where I realize, I need other skills that I don't necessarily possess. And I'm reaching around to grab people that have those skills and get them on my team, because it's not creation, it's management. And I suck at it. So somebody else should do it.
Yeah, it's the cool thing about these ecosystems is we have how many delegated proof of stake chains? We have a growing community of people who are gaining expertise on these various aspects of how to run a community like it. And it's just going to reach, just like everything that's social, there's going to reach a point on that S curve where it goes exponential to like crazy exponential, right? Where you just are flying directly up, right? And that's going to happen. And we have this cool thing where, because of that, the dynamic in these communities is, if I don't have a skill on something, there's somebody who probably does who can help me. And that's why you guys will continue hearing me talk about guilds. And because that's really what guilds were about. It was like, we have a passion for a certain thing. In the case of, video games and stuff, it's killing fake monsters. But it doesn't have to be just killing fake monsters. It can be all kinds of things, right? If you have a vision and a shared vision as a community, you can accomplish a lot of things in a decentralized fashion that you might not have thought was possible if you didn't have that. And that's really what we're looking at, Greg. And you have a DAC that's running on its own right now that you're walking through those steps, right? So I'm sure you feel like very close to it, and you understand exactly what I'm talking about. You don't probably also understand a lot of the, whenever Edna's traded, what does it trade against? BTC and EOS, right? That's what happens, and that's how do you keep that sovereignty? How do you let the community run itself? But also, how do you make sure that it contributes value in the places where you want it to? So it's a big place, and that's why I think we need a galaxy of DACs to help figure it out, and hopefully enrich enough people like you and Greg and Genesis, and man, a lot of you guys here. If you guys had the funding, I'm sure a lot of you guys would actually build really cool things, right? So getting those funds, getting those DACs out there, those stars out there, to start creating some mass and bring in more mass from outside of the solar systems.
That's all I got.
Yeah, power picks. Block 1 could also still dev the next chain tech to surpass EOCO. So Dan, attached to Block 1 would only be related to EOS. Or not only be related to EOS. Yeah, it's a very interesting way of doing things. I don't know if it was a 10-year contract or not, but a 10-year contract's a long contract. No, it's all you're good. Okay, so you said this time you say will happen when the light suddenly goes on worldwide. This relies on various things coming together, like an integrated system of economy supported by the use of blockchain and cryptocurrency. providing a token for stability on value for transactions in the physical world. Do you have that on the roadmap? If not, are you interested? I think that you're talking about stable coins, and there are multiple people who are doing them. We're always interested in hearing more about them. If you guys have a stable coin, I would be very interested in hearing how it works and learning about it. But stable coins, yeah, there are multiple ones, and then there's also multiple different projects that are looking at inter-blockchain type of stuff too. So there's a lot of cool things that are going on, and I think that DPoS and EOS-based systems are going to become that integrated system of economies that you're talking about. Because if you look at it like kind of like the galaxy, and each solar system has its own cryptocurrency, you have a way to easily get from one solar system to the next, maybe powered by the sun. You kind of are looking at the same kind of concept of connection between delegated proof of stake chains. And you really couldn't do it between Bitcoin and other chains quite as easily, using most of the means that are available. Because simply Bitcoin doesn't offer the scalability that it needs. It's so crazy that we sit here every week and we talk about this stuff, and then I go every week I hear another news story where they're talking about someday we're going to be able to do this, and this, and you're like, wow, we're doing those things. And man, I have to believe that it's not going to be long before people recognize it.
Well, personally, I don't know most of the stuff you're talking about because you're above my pay grade on all your information that you're giving me. So most of it is over my head. I don't actually have a stable coin at the moment, but I do have a roadmap on how to make one. I won't take up this show with all of that, but maybe sometime I could text your DM and go into it with you.
Oh, I would love to hear about it, man. Just if you can do me a favor and write it up on like a Google Doc and pass it to me, and then I know how I can just go read that, right? And I'll know where it is, and I can actually, if you PM me you go to the EOSTalk.io forums, click on the Discord, you can join there, and you can PM me from right in there. And that's to everybody. If you guys ever have anything, or you run into something that you think, wow, I would love to have this person join, you're more than welcome to have them reach out directly to me. But with that said, yeah, please get back to me, PM me with it, and I'll look at it, man. It might take a little bit, but I will get to it. I promise you on that. But yeah, sounds good. Anybody else here?
Well, I'll do that.
Sounds good, man. All right, well, in summary, everybody, I think that we're looking at a galaxy of different DACs with different solar systems. And they're going to all have their own gravity. They're all going to be able to connect to one another through wormholes. And you're going to basically see the exponential operating system and DPoS are going to be able to connect in different ways that are going to really create a new fabric, a new economic fabric. And when we have fewer coins trading against Bitcoin, because it's just so much easier to trade against the delegated proof of stake ones and the EOS ones, or in the case of bandwidth markets, or markets like EOS or Steam rather, and whale shares, when you have something that people can stake and they can earn off of that, you have something that's very powerful. And if it can also scale, where do you guys think the future is in cryptocurrency? Not going to talk about Moon, but where do you think cryptocurrency is?
right? I mean, I was just checking up this graph here of Internet of Things, which shows how many devices are connected to the internet, which can use, cryptocurrency. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. It follows Moore's law, which is basically ending up in a straight line up where the development is so fast that it's almost for humans not anymore followable. Then everything is computers and yeah.
Yep. The Internet of Things is coming on strong. Virtual reality worlds coming on strong. 3D printing coming on strong. Man, there's so much stuff that is going to just expand our boundaries and our borders on different levels. And then we're going to have economic systems that connect to all of them. So imagine what that's going to look like. We're going to have blockchains connected to it all. It's, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's crazy. I must admit, for me, it's already going too fast, But I don't believe that in time everything will settle itself to automation and programmings. So maybe a chain can build itself, in the future, completely out of blue. I don't know, but I think so.
Well, I won't get too far into that other than to say I have some interesting ideas on that myself. But does anybody have anything EOS related before we close off for the night and go into the after party for all you crazy nerds? I know you guys will talk there. Oh, EOSTalk Bodyguard, you have a bounty? Go ahead. Please go ahead and step up if you want. Or I can say it either way.
It's about a project, the Enmivo project. There is a bounty that they drop for any developers who could, complete the task, and it's $2,000 bounty. I could share the post ahead about the instructions needed for any developers that is willing to undergo the task.
Do you have a link by chance?
Yes, if I could, just give me some few seconds. Let me go grab it.
Sounds good. Yeah, because the bounties and the different things that we do as a community, that's how we get a lot of this stuff done in decentralized fashion. So if anybody who's a developer who wants to participate or help, feel free. I'm sure Marshall will get us the link. But until then, thank you guys, everybody, for joining up. And we will be, of course, having the BitsharesTalk hangout next week. And the following week, we will again have the EOSTalk. But thank you, everybody who does join up to these. Thank you to those of you who listen live. And thank you to those of you who share this content, because it's coming from a place where I think that we have a lot of insight that we've provided that has not necessarily always been the flashiest. It hasn't been the most catchphrasy or, trying to clickbait people. But what we do is we try to give you information that you can assimilate, kind of grab onto and hold onto for a little bit broader picture of the crypto scene. And we're in a place where I think it's not just us talking, it's us showing you at this point what is going on and what we have. So you don't have to listen to any of the FUD. You can literally go and look to see what the response to all the FUD that you will read in mainstream crypto news is, just by joining our community and being part of what we do. Okay, now, real quick, if you guys wouldn't mind plugging this up here. This is for Inamivo is a fork of EOS, is that correct? Marsha?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so is it going to be, is there anything specifically that you want to talk about with this bounty?
Yeah, is everybody know if they don't know about EOS, which means he has the characteristics of EOS chain. Is what they are looking for is just trying to create an exchange, that's a smart contract exchange that could actually peg the LitShares, that's LitShares, their own clone of BitShares, that is LitShares.io. So if they could a smart contract that could relate on an LTS market to Enumivo, that is Enu, the mainnet token, which is 10 Enu should be pegged to 1 LTS. It's just any developer who could build a smart contract of such market, like a Banco type of market.
Yeah, I will get you the EOS devs group that I know about too. Some point after this, because that group might be a really good place for you to connect up and ask as well.
Okay, appreciate it.
Of course. Now, with that said, everybody, thank you for joining up, and we will see you next Saturday. Of course, the Saturday hangout will be in the morning, which is 7 a.m. UTC, or 8 a.m. UTC or 8 a.m. Central for me. I don't know off the top of my head UTC. I could go look, but we do hold these. You can go to the official Fuzzy blog on whaleshares.io or EOSTalk.io, and you can see the times right there. And also RSVP if you have anything that you'd like to bring up. And with that said, thank you very much for everybody for joining up, and we'll talk to you next week.